everybody. Welcome to the Virtual Songwriters Room. So I'm really happy to welcome Shannon Roszell tonight. And I just want to tell you a little bit about her. She hates bios and she hates unnecessary bragging and bravado. But here's a little bit about her to get the conversation rolling. Shannon is a singer-songwriter from the Kawartha Lakes. Her sound is best characterized as symphonic indie rock, fusing orchestral voicings with searing electric guitar and vocals. She's an outspoken environmentalist and describes her single, Gonna Love You, as a post-apocalyptic love song to our damaged earth. Shannon's debut album, Within the Shimmering Darkness, will be released in the spring of 2022 and was produced by Frank Greiner. Frank also hates bios, but he is mostly known for his work with A Perfect Circle, Rob Zombie, Trent Severn, and M. Greiner, to name a few. So welcome, Shannon, and thank you for being here. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here with you tonight.
Awesome. Just a little bit about how we know each other. So I take some lessons with James Linderman, and he recommended you as being a possible person who would be interested. And I'm really happy that you agreed to join us. And I started songwriting during COVID, so I'm very new to it. And it's wonderful to meet other songwriters and just learn a little bit about you know, how they got started and what their process is. And so why don't we start there? Just how you got started, and
Yeah.
maybe the first song, maybe you could tell us a little bit about your first song if you remember it.
My first song. I really am very new to songwriting as well. Not as new as you are. Congratulations. That's really cool that you started during COVID, by the way. I know a lot of artists kind of stopped during COVID because it was, you know, really disturbing to what they were used to, you know, stopping touring and all that sort of stuff. So the first time I really got into songwriting was actually in 2013 when I lived in Vancouver. I am from here. I'm from Oakville, born and raised there. I also spent my summers in the Kawartha Lakes, so I feel like I've always lived up here in Fenelon Falls in some part. But I found myself in Vancouver in 2013. I had just dropped out of a PhD program that was not a good fit for me. I had done a lot of theater and performance art. That's actually my training and my background, other than, you know, music, which has been my focus since. But I found myself out west. I moved there to be with my boyfriend at the time. We broke up after 2 weeks and I was in a new city. I literally had no friends and I really had nothing. And thankfully, I did know one person that I met through him at some point who let me stay in his basement apartment while he was in Alberta. And that was amazing. My best friend out here asked me to sing at his wedding. And I, of course, accepted. And so I started in this basement in Vancouver, really just preparing to sing at my friend's wedding, like practicing Make You Feel My Love by Bob Dylan, you know, and I would practice like 5 hours a day because I had nothing else to do. And then it sort of kept evolving. And I thought to myself, like, you literally play music for hours on end. And let's be clear, I could not play the guitar at this time. I really could play like 3 or 4 chords. Anything with the smallest amount of bar chord, like an F, I had like all these little cheats and stuff. I couldn't play guitar, let's be really clear. But I still decided maybe I should busk, because if you're spending 5 hours down here by yourself, well, if somebody would give you a toonie to spend 5 hours doing it, you know, in public, why not do that? So I actually auditioned for the Granville Island busking program, which if you've been to Vancouver, you'll probably know it. Granville Island is this great sort of world of its own, and they have their own busking program with, you know, these amazing stores all there, and, you know, a market, that sort of thing. So I auditioned for this thing. The guy ahead of me went to Berkeley music school and was like a virtuoso on the violin, and he did not get it. So I was like, oh my gosh.
Oh, he didn't get into the busking
No,
lineup?
no, he did not. So I was like, okay, I could, you know, squeak my way by on guitar, and I could sing, and I was entertaining. And that was the thing, was being able to talk with a crowd and joke with a crowd and, you know, do that. So I started doing that. And let me tell you, the fear of public embarrassment and humiliation is a really good motivator to get better. So I got a lot better really quickly because I didn't want to be embarrassed in public. And that sort of led me to just being more and more into music, and, you know, going to open mic nights, not playing anything original. I'd never written music at this point. I'd written my own independent theater, weird theater, as my mom called it, at that point. But I'd never written anything. But I did meet a collaborator through Craigslist. I say before it was creepy, maybe it was creepy then. This is 2013. But he was awesome. He quoted a philosopher, he sounded interesting, and we met at a reputable rehearsal space. And he was about 10 years older than me. His name is Pete Lutwich. He's a very talented musician, writer. He's had a lot of placements in like Doctor Who and other stuff. He does a lot of like weird kind of stuff as well. But we started playing together. So we met in this rehearsal space, and he would just take out his electric guitar and his like drum machine from the 80s, and he just like whip out a beat and just improvise something on his guitar. And I just started to sing. And that first, not
Wow.
knowing anything about song structure or theory or anything.
So you just started improvising.
Yep. And that day we wrote Greyhound, which is a song about my 65-hour journey across Canada on a Greyhound bus. And it involves the F word quite prominently. And it actually is, it was one of those songs where like it's a crazy structure. Again, I had no idea what I was doing, but there's something in it. There's a hook in it, and it really tells a story, and the vibe of it's really interesting. And it's actually on the album.
Oh,
That's going to be
wow.
coming out. Yeah, it made it through all of these years and being tested and tried out. And honestly, it hasn't even undergone that much editing, which is unlike me as an artist. So Greyhound, this song where the chorus says, "This Greyhound will drive me fucking nuts," which is how I felt the whole time on this bus. Yeah, it's stayed after all this time. So really improvising as a singer and top lining was how I started, was with Pete. And we would get together every Thursday, and we would just, you know, after we improvised Greyhound, of course, we would record it on our phones or whatever. He's like, "I think you just wrote your first hit," or something. I remember something like that.
That brings me up, that makes me think of a question, if you don't mind me just jumping in. It's about the process of co-writing. So you're very new to, at this point, you were very new to songwriting, and he has a lot of experience, and you're together. So is he coming up with the chords and the progressions, and then, or is it something you're doing together, or?
No, he's coming up, like, at that point I would have been like, chords and progressions, what are you talking about, Sequoia? Like, no, I mean, I knew what a chord was and stuff, but I wouldn't have, you know, and I did play songs, but I wouldn't have known anything about that to be able to contribute, honestly. So he would come up usually with a riff, you know, some sort of guitar riff, and then, you know, we would build on that. And he has this really interesting way of playing playing simple but really catchy riffs, but then sort of modulating them differently and just sort of playing off of them. And I gotta tell you, he is the only guitar player that I've ever sat with who said, "Oh, I think I need to turn down now. I can't hear your voice quite enough." I nearly fell off my stool when I was there. So he had this like humility to him and maturity. And I think because he was so experienced, like he's released a bunch of records, you know, that were really popular out west and, you know, back in the 90s and stuff. But that's really how I started. In terms of how I write now, I actually don't do that much co-writing anymore. But I still definitely, things usually come from a lyrical hook that sort of inspires a song. Generally, I think I'm definitely a top liner. I am, you know, the progressions and the chords and riffs, those are not my strength. I'm working on them, but they are not my strength at all. Yeah.
So now it goes with like you're coming up with your own progressions now, and it starts with the progression for you, and then you come up with the lyrics after.
No, it always
Mhm.
starts with a lyrical idea and generally some like shard of melody, like
Oh, okay.
just like this little piece, this little bit, or like, okay, this shard has been going through my head for years, and it's like I don't even have a melody for it, but like I threw out your toothbrush, it's over. Like it's the start of a song. You know what I mean? Just like little things like that that then can, you know, inspire a song. Or Science Experiment, the song I just most recently put out. How could you love me when my fridge is a science experiment? Everything came from there. Everything came from that line.
I love humorous songs. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I don't know why I thought you had said that you started with the progression. I guess maybe because that's how it had started originally with like the first with your first co-writer.
Yeah.
Um,
For sure.
yeah, interesting.
It definitely did. And I think for a lot of musicians, it does start that way.
Mm.
Um, but again, my entry point into writing was singing. I've, you know, sung my whole life. And, you know, I was like a musical theater geek in high school and middle school, you know. And so I've always been a singer. And then, of course, writing theater is all about language, right? So definitely lyrics are my strong point, and then really leaning more heavily on other people for you know the everything else, you know, just the chords and whatever riffs and stuff. But I mean, that's why you work with a producer. And what parts of a song are copyrighted? Well, that would be the melody and the lyric. We can't copyright chord progressions, right? Because there's only so many chords and so many keys and so many ways you can play them. You can't just reserve the key of G in a 1-3-5-3 and call it yours forever, you know?
Right, right. So are you working on guitar playing? Is that something that you focus on, or is there another instrument that you also work with?
Yeah, I 100% work a lot on guitar, and I really am. I'm working on learning like a new riff every day to try and get
Wow.
to my lead guitar skills up. Um, and I also am learning how to play the piano. I've always had a love of piano, and I sort of just taught myself chords to sing with and play with back in, you know, high school and stuff, just because I loved it. But now I'm, you know, I've learned to read bass clef, which for a female singer and former flute player is something you got to do, right? You don't know how to read treble clef if you're a female singer or you play, you know, the flute. So that's another practice, is sight reading on the piano is a pretty integral part of my, you know, my workouts, for my musical workouts, for lack of a better term. Yeah.
Awesome. Um, yeah, there's so much to learn and so little time. So I feel there's so many things I would like to learn
Yes.
and so it's just kind of like a process of trying to always be satisfied, but also push yourself a little bit to learn a little bit more every
Constantly.
day.
Yeah.
So, what is happening with your music at the moment, and where are you hoping to take things?
Interesting. Well, I've released my first two singles off of the album, Gonna Love You and then Science Experiment. And I released the official video for Gonna Love You on Earth Day, because it has an environmental theme, of course, so kind of tied it in there. And then Science Experiments video actually releases next Tuesday, June 29th, June. So that's great. That's produced by Frank Reiner as well. Frank is really uniquely positioned for this project because he is a professional musical producer, but he also is like a director of music videos. So his most recent one was a Mariah Carey video. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. Def Leppard, Alice Cooper. Like he swims in some pretty big oceans. And then there's like my video there on his website. So it's pretty interesting. So I'm very
Wow, that's really exciting.
yeah, he and I just have a really great working relationship just from the second that we talked on the phone. We've really clicked, and that's what's taken this project where it is. I don't know if I would have had the this not the strength or the guts. I don't know if I would have released a full album if it hadn't have been for starting to work with Frank, because it was just such an absolute pleasure. And we're working also on a live show to accommodate, to go with the album. So that's a big goal too. So really, I am a live performer. That's what I've
That's what
tried.
you like.
That's
That's
what I love. Yeah. So that's always been a focus. So actually, interestingly enough, the entire concept and sonic palette for Within the Shimmering Darkness it came out of that love of live performance and the plan to perform live. And what I mean by that is, you know, historically, when I lived in Toronto, I played a lot of shows. I had a backing band, I played rhythm guitar. I had a lead guitar player or a violin player, depending on the time. I had a bass player, I had a drummer, that really sort of traditional rock sound. And I loved playing with them. It was so much fun. And it was just fantastic. But the songs I took the songs that I'd written as far as I could go with them. They couldn't go any further. I was too close to them to enhance them. And I really needed somebody with fresh eyes and fresh ideas to look at them. And that's what I wanted from a producer. And I was very clear about that. But the other thing was I really wanted to be able to tour. But of course, touring is not exactly a get rich quick scheme, and certainly not with a lot of players. So what we did with this album, this project, is we designed everything so that it can be played solo by me playing electric guitar, singing, and then using a track as well.
yeah.
So, and a track, it's some people sort of like, they get tense when they hear that. You're like, oh, I want to hear live music, and you're playing to a track and whatever. But that's like what they do in hip hop. Like, that's normal. That's like the day to day. That's what Ed Sheeran's doing now, like
With the loops, I mean, using a loop is the same as a track, right? Yeah.
exactly. So what that did was we didn't want people to be like, oh, she's got a rock drummer and a bass player and a lead guitar player in this backing track, like where's the band? We didn't want that feeling of like a karaoke vibe at all. Like if anyone was like, oh yeah, it was a cool show, but it was like karaoke, like I would like vomit if somebody said that to me, you know what I mean? So what Frank really did was he was so innovative in the way that he opened up the palette, and he didn't use any of those sounds. Yes, there's bass in there. If you have songs without bass, like you're gonna notice. You really want that in there, but it's not. It's not coming from a bass guitar. You know what I mean? That's being filled in by orchestral voicings or different interesting synthesized sounds that people are working with so much. So I really love the palette that's there. It's very lush, very atmospheric. Today, somebody sort of reviewed a song and said it was airy, almost experimental, which I was like, yeah, I can see that for science experiment. It has this like strange worldliness to it. So yeah, everything was designed to be played solo. And then of course, COVID hit. So the whole, reason behind how we produced the album seemed deeply ironic because we would not be playing it live for
Oh,
the
wow.
foreseeable future. Yeah. And now, so we pivoted to music videos and getting official videos out there.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're sort of like, okay, now people are booking shows. Now what? Are we pivoting back to this live show again? So that's sort of what Frank and I are currently talking about.
Oh, wow, that's exciting.
Yeah.
And do you have the videos? I didn't see those videos on your website, but they're on Frank's website, or are you putting them on
Oh,
your
they are
website
on my
as
website. They
Oh,
should
they are? Okay.
be on my website.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
But only one. Gonna Love You is the only one that's out. Of course, Science Experiment comes out next Tuesday, June 29th. And they are on YouTube. So you can find them there really easily.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I just wanted to put it out there that we will have some time at the end. If anybody wants to share a song, we can do that at the end, and I won't record that part of the program. And then if anybody wants to give some, some constructive feedback or not, sometimes it's just good to have the experience of sharing the song. That's good too. But Shannon, did you want, I have some more questions, but I think you also were thinking of playing. So what do you want to do, and like what?
Yeah. I'm happy to play Gonna Love You live. I'm also happy to play
Great. Oh, great.
now I'm gonna put out like a disclaimer here. Gonna Love You is the hardest song to play off of the album. And I practice this bugger every single day. So I'm really excited to get to play it live for you guys. And I'm excited for you to sort of see it because it's actually a lead guitar part with a vocalist, which is normally not two jobs that you sort of marry
Do
together.
it once, yeah.
So it's kind of like full on, and we'll see how it goes. I'm excited to try it. Okay. Not to say I haven't done it before. I've played it many times, but
I'm going to turn my mic off just for now, just while you're playing.
Yeah, sure. Just give me 1 second to get situated here. Find my pick. Okay, they're good. longer wet. Gonna love you when the desert's all we get. Gonna love you when the sun no longer sets. Gonna love you when there's no ice left. Gonna love you when the lake's no longer wet. Gonna love you when the desert's all we get. Gonna love you when the sun no longer sets. Gonna love you. Gonna love you. Something like that.
Wow, that was amazing. Amazing. Thank you so much.
All right.
Are you going to do another one right away, or are you going to take a
Sure.
break?
So one interesting thing I thought I might clarify, because all I shared was about Greyhound and how Greyhound just like spewed out of me and I didn't touch it and it sounded so magical. Usually when I songwrite, I like wrestle things to the ground. It's not this like beautiful inspired moment that you hear about. It's like Gonna Love You, for example. I started with Pete in 2013 after I walked the tar sands in Fort McMurray. It was very eye-opening and impactful thing to go and walk around a tailings pond by the extraction plant, the Suncor plant. And to describe it, maybe it'll give some ideas to why Gonna Love You has sort of this darkness to it. There's absolutely no wildlife there. Like there are no birds, you don't hear anything. All you see are these trucks with potable water driving up the highway and coaches bringing in workers. We're walking around this 14-kilometer road, like dirt road, with elders of local First Nations, and it was an honor to be there. And this tailings pond in the middle has a boat in it. Somebody's in this boat and they're setting off explosives. So about every 3 minutes, you just hear these like explosives going on. So I inquired about this, and apparently the reason it's there is the tailings pond is so polluted that they set it off so that birds don't land there. Because if they land there, they simply sink into the water. And I couldn't breathe. I had to go and get my inhalers from 45 minutes away. My body was it was unbelievable. It was a wasteland. And that really impacted this song. But it's such a big song. This song started as a 13-minute improvisation that was just like crazy all over the place. And it was called When Ice Melts. But if you say that really fast, it sounds like When I Smell. So it's like, well, you can't sing that. That's not what you want to sing about. So, I had to take this song, and so few people could help me with. They had, I took it to a lot of different songwriting coaches and stuff, and they just didn't know what to do with it. And a friend of mine actually helped me with the chorus and sort of get it to where it is. And then Frank actually had me help me or gave me the task of escalating everything that happens in the chorus, when there's no ice left, when the lake's no longer wet, when a desert's all we get, and then of course the most sort of apocalyptic, poetic, untrue thing, when the sun no longer sets. And so that was something that happened, 4 years later, 4 or 5, many, many years later, did that song sort of, finish being written. So things aren't always like a beautiful little, most of the time my songs, like How Could You Love Me When My Fridge Is a Science Experiment, like that line was around for a really long time before, before it became the song that it is. And it started off as a piano song, actually. My first day playing piano, our teacher James was like, here's this simple little line here, and go write a song. That's what he always used to, he teaches me a song, like he teaches me something, and he's like, go write a song. And you're like, okay. And I actually did, and I played it for him, and my sister helped me with the progression. Actually, she came in, she's a music teacher, and she's watching. She's amazing. So she helped me with that. And so it's just interesting that when you hear Science Experiment now, there's no piano in it. It sounds totally different. Even the timing of it is different, and we got rid of the bridge as well. So when you actually produce things as an artist, I really think that you do your best work when you let somebody else come in and be objective and improve what you're doing. And I know a lot of artists kind of get I don't know, not first idea, best idea, some people say, and I am like I do not believe in that at all. Like, I edit the hell out of every word of my songs generally, except for Greyhound. That's like the only one. But really, how intelligent is this Greyhound will drive me fucking nuts. It's not. This song is called Kiss Like You Mean It. It doesn't sound like this on the record at all, but I'm gonna play it like this for you guys. You lie like a bad road, late at night, with no moon, no town in sight. You fast short turn. Oh, love me recklessly, come on, somehow. If you're gonna kiss me, kiss like you mean it. Love me recklessly, come on, somehow. If you're gonna kiss me, kiss like you mean it. Oh my god, I haven't played this song in so long. You call like an ice shield, moaning low. Here each fissure down below. It cracks, it burns. Oh, love me recklessly, come on, somehow. If you're gonna kiss me, kiss like you mean it. Love me recklessly, come on, somehow. If you're gonna kiss me, kiss like you mean it. What are you waiting for? What are you waiting for? Minding me a break, break boy, what are you waiting for? Love me recklessly, come on, somehow. If you're gonna kiss me, oh, love me recklessly, somehow. If you're gonna kiss me, kiss like you mean it.
Wonderful. Very good.
Yeah,
That was Science Experiment, right?
that was Kiss Like You Mean It.
Oh, that was Kiss Like You Mean It. Okay.
Mhm.
Love it.
Yeah. Books, yeah.
And that's on the album too, right?
That's on the album too. I believe it's coming out. Oh, I didn't sing that with any any vocal. Oh well.
I mean, it sounded, I didn't know.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. Um, it's coming right now. It's slated to come out in September. That song, but I'm always like, oh, should I release it in September or should I leave it for the album in April? I don't know. I just have an overthinking problem. So it's set to come out in September, and and we have recorded some video content for the music video as well. So, which was pretty fun. I was on a treadmill that was green screened. It was crazy. It was ridiculous. I almost fell off and broke my ankle many times. Yeah, but it was super fun. I'm excited to see that one that comes.
I have a question about, I mean, people can feel free to put their questions in the chat or just raise your hand or even just jump in. But the question that I have is about how much it's cost you, I guess, to come up with an album. And I know that's hard because how do you calculate that? It's just off the top of your head, but
Like, how
is
many
it
hours does it take to record an
like
album?
well, not like for this album, this is your first album, right? And you've been working on it probably for a number of years, right?
Yep.
And so you're getting it produced, you're getting it recorded, and you're also doing music videos. And I know things can be done for less money as, you know, as time goes on. It seems like costs go down, but just
Mhm.
curious, like if it's cost you a lot of
Um,
money or if,
it's an investment for sure. Yeah, absolutely. It's an investment. I think if people are interested in like having their own work produced, I think sort of understanding your own budget and 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 then finding producers that are playing in what you can afford. And I don't mean that disrespectfully because there are some brilliant, super enthusiastic people who are, pretty recently out of school that are going to be way cheaper than Frank Griner. you know, it's just, but you have to be realistic with what makes sense to you. I don't recommend the route that I went with recording an album as your first foray into recording at all. If I did it again, I don't think I wouldn't do it like this. But it made sense for me. It was a project. It was like like a full thing. It's an album. It's an experience. It's not a single. I know it's a singles world, and I would recommend that that's what singers start with is singles and EPs ranging from 3 songs to 5 or 6 songs. That's totally normal, and I think we're going to see more and more artists releasing EPs as opposed to these full-length albums because the numbers just aren't there for musicians. The only artists that aren't necessarily paid for time and playing, and and it's interesting though because the things that if you ever do online dating, which I'm sure a lot of people have, and God knows I have in the past, the things you learn about people, basically 2 things. Everyone loves to travel and everyone loves music, and those 2 things are really integral to their identity. So it's interesting that this thing that we all love, that we associate with periods of our life, like we have soundtracks to our lives, isn't valued the same way that other things are. So I think musicians have had to sort of change the game. And so that's why you're seeing a lot more singles. And of course, just the way that music is consumed, through streaming services, it
yeah.
is through singles. So I would recommend, doing the singles route.
And is it put onto Spotify or how are you
Yeah.
actually getting CDs made? I guess not, right? Like,
No, CDs are still popular.
oh,
They're not
okay.
necessarily popular because people can play them, but they're popular because because if you've had an emotional experience seeing an artist live and you want to, have part of that somehow to take home with you in a weird way. It comes with a digital download, and oftentimes you'll get, the artist will get to, you'll interact with them and they'll get to sign it for you. And you just want to support the artist. So I think people do understand that, who really love music and who go to see live shows. They understand, sort of the world. And so CDs, but vinyl, of course, is very popular again. The
Right.
only thing being with vinyl, it's really bad for the environment to make. So there's some more efficient ways to do it, but it does use a lot of water and, of course, very heavy shipping. So a lot of things we need to bear in mind as musicians with our responsibility to the environment as well.
Okay. Didn't know that about vinyl.
Yeah.
Is it wax vinyl or no?
Yeah, I think it's
It's a type of wax.
a plastic. I think
It's a
they might
plastic.
use wax in the process of doing
Okay.
it to make the
Mhm.
molds and stuff. I don't know. I am
I just remember that it breaks. It's very brittle and like it shatters. That's what I
Yeah,
remember about it.
sure. Yeah, absolutely. But vinyl sort of made a comeback in a cool way. Yeah.
Yeah, it is cool.
Yeah.
All right, so we do have some questions in the chat.
Okay, thanks,
Um,
Lily. Didn't
So
see that.
where do you get your inspiration from from your lyrics? Where do you get your inspiration for your lyrics?
Yeah, great question. I mean, I think that so many moments, songs are sort of like encapsulated. It's almost like ghosts of moments, and sort of there are these moments in your life that you that stay with you, that just sort of ride along with you. And I would say those moments are what I tend to sing about. Um, it's kind of hard. I think understanding like more I write a lot of songs about, if somebody passes, I like write a song. It's usually terrible and you'll never hear it in your life, but usually it just rattles me so much because I think anyone passing, for me, anyone passing really is, it's like a wake up call to the inevitability of that for me. So I think that idea definitely plays into my art a lot. But yeah, experiences that I've had, like riding across on the bus was a crazy experience. Um, Gonna Love You was more about like this, environmental issues that I was, you know, writing about. But sometimes you'll just sort of open your mouth and things tumble out. But other times it's also like you'll write about a person or a situation. Sometimes I'll quote people in songs. Um, yeah. Yeah. That's kind of interesting when you quote people. Watch out, people. You're all quotable. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. And another question, how long do you practice daily?
That's a great question. I would like to be able to practice for about I would like to be able to practice for 2 hours in terms of like, because there's a bunch of different stuff. In reality, because there's practicing my show, there's practicing singing, guitar, piano, and then within guitar, there's a bunch of different aspects, right? As well as learning how to produce. Um, sometimes though I have 20 minutes and you just get it out and you put a timer and you're like, okay, I'm going to do this for 5 minutes. Done, ding. Okay, what are you doing next? 5 minutes, ding. It's more, apparently, it's better for you to practice shorter amounts of time more frequently than not practice all week and then do like 4 hours, apparently.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I
Did we
believe
have
there are
one
some
more?
more questions. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Go
as
ahead.
you mentioned, Frank was very important in your career. Somebody was wondering, how did your partnership with him started?
That's a great question. So basically, I went to Canada's Music Incubator, which was a 3-month program in Toronto for emerging artists, and they support artists across Canada. And the person who was in charge of the performance aspect of that, because you learn information about being an artist, but also all the sort of music business side. So it's called Artist Entrepreneur Program. It's amazing. If anyone's an artist, they should check it out. And the guy who was in Sean Kelly, he's in charge of he was from my cohort, in charge of the performance side. He is friends with Frank. He's done projects with Frank, and they actually play in like a goofy metal band called Trapper. But they open for Def Leppard, so I mean, obviously they're good as well. And he said, you should look at Frank. And I had a list of 10 producers that I, interviewed and chatted with and stuff. And never in a million years did I think Frank would be the person that I would go with, just because, the most famous person that he's worked on their album for is like Rob Zombie and Perfect Circle and, Tommy Lee and all these sorts of people. And I'm like, that's not my music. But that's just the music industry, which is like, oh, what's the biggest name? That's what lives in the bracket after your name, like forever. It's not representative of the hundreds of different projects he's done. But just talking with him, we just, there was something similar about us and the way we wanted to work. He says he tried to scare me away. I didn't feel scared away at all. We talked for 2 hours the first time we talked, and then we talked again, and he sent me off to rewrite Gonna Love You in this horrible way. And I did it and came back, and then when we went to record it, I was like, so are we gonna do it like the way you made me change it to? And he's like, what did I? And he's like, no, it's great the way it is. I'm like, okay. So that's how I met him.
Awesome. Did we have any more questions, Lily?
Actually, yes. People are wondering about the pond you mentioned that was really polluted, and they were trying to scare off the birds. Could you repeat the name of that pond?
Yeah, it's called a tailings pond, like TAIL. Tailings being just like all of the runoff from the process of taking the the actual tar sands, which are sands that are really like oily, and then they have to convert it into petroleum products. And doing that uses a lot of water, and that water it's never able to be like cleaned again. So, and there's a lot of energy that goes into actually refining this. It actually uses more power than is in the gasoline that is extracted, ironically, and it uses something like 3 times as much water or something. Anyways, but this tailings pond is a 14-kilometer loop outside the Suncor extraction plant. Suncor is one of the large tar sands extraction companies up north of Fort McMurray, Alberta, about 45 minutes north of there. Don't quote me on that. The other big company, of course, is Syncrude, but this was the Suncor loop, they call it.
Great. We do have some time where we can share songs if nobody has said that they want to share a song, so we don't have to do that. But I have always said that I will share a song, and I did it last time just because I just would like to have that as part of the regular program, because we're going to be doing this again in August, and so I can do that. I will stop recording at that point, and then if anybody wants to step up instead, that would be great. And do we have any other questions for Shannon? It's been such a great experience to hear you play. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. It's been so fun. I was looking forward to this all week, so thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear your song too.
Okay. Thanks.